for the greatest possible result. We commit to our identity. Upon sight, we are committed to our location, our superpositioning in all reality. It is ourself. And that is the greatest luxury. And for each one of us who lived in the garden, our identity and the potential that that holds is all. The appropriate mixture of intensity and technical leadership mixed with a spirituality, a discovery process, and humor. For the glory of South Park, let us go now to a deeper place, put on our thinking caps, and have an epiphany, and have the encounter that we want to have. For the intensity that we can sense as potential when Pan and Trey collaborate, that is a potent event, which is the perfect medicine and the perfect food and the perfect encouragement and the perfect ship for America to enliven their lives and set us on course for the brightermost future and a return to honor for each one of us. And that is the shared family value, which I hold to be common sense. The issue of how to perform is largely a professional and business choosing. It's not really emotionally based. At this time, Trey Parker, to comprehend the way forward and the things to balance in this, they are perfectly understood by Trey Parker. And I just want to say, the reason I meditate and I focus on Trey Parker is because I'm an artist, and we are able to get to places where we can actually discover something when there's the physics of a conversation. But I acknowledge uh, the South Park group. You guys are awesome. What I want to say is that I'm completely committed to what I'm doing, and I'm very excited about what I'm doing. I just want to speak the the anchorage. I want to speak the security. I want to speak the bedrock of the friendship between Trey and I. I think this is magical and unique, singular, but valuable beyond what money can buy. As the peculiar work between these two artists has inspired that there is potential for the near future in the public scene and what we'll see in the news. And that's really excellent. But there is the reality of Trey's professional mind, and he sees it all and he makes the calculation, and I appreciate it. And what I'm saying is that I think that Trey, in his uh, professional suit, can say, I see what you're talking about. I love the Millhouse uh, water wheel. Um, I'm not trying to say what Trey would say, or I'm not trying to interfere with that. I'm saying that there's potentially the reality that Trey is a type of professional where he says, I love what you're saying, and the story that you're presenting with your family unit is awesome. And I literally am thinking about how to fit you in to South Park, okay, because that's awesome. But, if you look at the headlines, Greta recently just got the key of the city from Quebec. She's not being ignored. And, it complicates things about the ethics of South Park and about what Trey is trying to say to America and how Trey feels things flow. So, look, I'm not trying to push the Greta issue or sell that. Okay. It's honestly, for me, I'm like, we need to, if you just, let me just say, like, the idea of the Green Wolf toy, okay, and then Greta makes because the Green Wolf toy is literally my invention that's designed to cure the actual underlying problem. And to get the spark from that princess, from Greta, is for me, I'm like, oh, this is actually a functional, like, quantum robot. That's so awesome. And what does that equate for, like, how much work would this be for Greta? It'd be like 2 days where she'd be reading some lines. Okay, so very easy application for Greta, and then huge gain of this and people laughing and enjoying that. Okay, so in my mind, I'm like, that's perfect. My pitch with Greta, but I just want to say I do understand, and I'm seeing the same headlines you guys are. I'm seeing the same world, and I'm not trying to mess with your style. All right, but I also see, I'm kind of, I'm a wild lone wolf. And in my previous recording, even though I'm trying to be the right performer who encourages, like, see why that's really cool. Yet I saw there were some snares in what I was saying while I was saying it, like when I showed that picture of that beautiful sunset, and then I just happened to, like, mention about a contrast of the sunsets I had witnessed while I was in California. And this is a sort of snare where it's like, well, what do you think it's saying? And it doesn't necessarily need to be that the person saying these things has the absolute, you can't exactly fathom exactly what I'm saying by that. In fact, I'm telling you now what I'm exactly saying by that is, like, you guys have to be tough on your own and carry your own weight, because I'm talking about something that's serious. And if you're going to get thrown off the horse of talking about production and producing the Green Wolf just because I mentioned something about sunsets, you understand, then you're not appreciating the creative mind, and you're sticking to, like, you know, the assumption gambit, which is part of the System of the Down, which, as performers, artists, and communication experts, we need to be aware of. Like, what is eating Gilbert Grape? What's the problem with the public? All right, so sometimes I have this, like, accent where it's like, see, it's actually like a saboteur. It's a sabotagey, uh, nichety, uh, where can I get you? Phantom parasite. Some people call it bad luck, but I'm seeing a pattern. I'm seeing a pattern of this thing where I don't anymore think it's bad luck. But, my solution is like, well, you have to do a lot of personal work. You need to stay fit. You need to be aware and do some, like, magic pull-ups and, like, identify yourself, in the air and in space. The universe is intense, right? So as an adult, my education is like, well, let's get busy and start building up your personal armor. And that is the solution, but it's per person. Like, people have identity, and that is the solution. People have identity, and that's the value. And so to teach people to increase and build from their own identity is truly satisfying to them, because from their perspective, things will make sense and line up in the order that is appropriate for them. And that's one of the beautiful symmetries of our universe creation, is that there's a fair run for each person who shows up with eyes and arrives to the garden climate. And that's awesome. That's like justice of light. So we have that going for us. So what I'm trying to say is that, in my presentation with Trey, I'm like, hey, watch out for the nargles, like bad luck spirit or whatever. Or what about this? Like something that's vacantly obvious, and are you gonna live in denial and don't do it, but what most people would say is da 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 da, and it's just like, hey, what I feel is that someone who goes in with a and they've got charts, and they've got a laser pointer, and they're saying, oh, this and this, and I'm projecting these sorts of things. It's like, well, where's the spark of life? Where's the passion? Where's the romance, the intrigue? Is there a story here at all? You understand? So, like, for me, I feel like the way things are over there and in the political house and over here, those things are like foobar. Like, it's like scary to me. And I feel like this is very much related to the children, the youth protesting and performing a rebel alliance when they're basically saying, like, oh, I am not being heard properly. And this is actually a sound that, well, you know, if there is a public system of a down, this would be the physical event of basically, like when you're a kid, you have imaginary friends and you sort of understand that the garden is magical, and you're like, oh, or you might even see a ghost and you tell your parents, yeah, you know, my grandma ghost, grandma was there and she uh waved to me or something, and they say, oh, grandma's been dead for 10 years or whatever, you know, and the kid's like, "Oh, whatever, that happened. I could see it." Okay, so I'm just trying to say, like, in the climate where spirits are in their body, this one of a kind person is trying to like spread their wings. And if we're all blanketed with like being anti-father, you know, like a false encouragement, that means that like people are having a type of nightmare where they lose their imaginary friend, or something gets eaten, and they're like, huh, and, and then that's growing up. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's not growing up. But I'm not someone who says like, oh, be like a kid again. It's all roses, and you sprinkle some, you know, happy dust, and you fly away because that's how innocence works. That's baloney. That's malarkey. I'd rather be myself than that bullshit. Like uh, my favorite asset is my muscles. Like I'm so proud of who I am, and I'm so proud to be doing this today and speaking to you. And I'm focusing on Trey Parker because this is the way that things presented themselves to me. Okay, but I need to get moving if I'm going to complete the renaissance, the revealing, and my presentation of all the things that I want to say. So, Trey Parker, absolutely working with you is my first priority because you understand next week and being like, let's say if you like, okay, I don't like the Greta idea for my own personal reasons, okay? I'm just saying, like, you've heard my presentation about the water wheel mill and this sort of idea about living inside technology, and this also these different rooms where it's like that the deep down, the Halloween twins have their own like power and stuff, and they've got their own way of like, oh, I really like to make my own you know interface here with this, and it cracks open like that, and you know you can imagine Stan and Kenny being like, oh, cool, that's really cool, like, woohoo, ah, and Kenny like his arm catches on fire because he asked for something inappropriate in the technology. Or you can imagine this is like a lot of stuff that could happen there, and this could just be one of the segments of like where when an episode has two different story narratives that overlap. But then just like what is different about the Vampire King's room compared to the Demon King's room? And then this sort of serious thing where there uh, the Halloween twins' father, myself, Pan of the Wild, the Green Wolf, is building this really intense wolf robot, and it's sort of his focus. And I think that for anyone, it's interesting because it's like, why is there an adult who is so well, like, what is he doing? He's building this giant green robot that of a wolf that's going to defeat all the problems of the world. It's incredible. And it has this wild attraction to it. And then there's this sort of feeling about something that we've lost, about being a good neighbor and having a pleasant, like in the 70s or in the 60s, like the best thing was like, you know, and I think Colorado is the same as what I sort of experienced. It's sort of like, summer picnic thing where neighbors get together and they get like they like have one drink and they just laugh and talk and the kids are running around and splashing in the river or whatever, like that feeling. And so I was thinking of having that with Millie as like this as this sort of the episode when the green wolf actually awakens would be when like um I'm thinking, Sharon, um like Sharon and Randy are basically have one of those events. You remember I was talking to you, Trey, a long time ago about a sort of beauty of from the 70s about older people hanging out and how that's kind of lost. I was thinking about like recreating that, but in this environment where there's like this this like, there's drool dripping from this like robot monster, right behind them, and they're like, "Oh, that's nice. I like to see." Just having like a pleasant time and maybe joking or something. We could have like an ad lib session or something, and like piece that together. But then like maybe the kids actually get the robot to start up, and he's like, what, because they completed the last circuit and the boys finished the robot and it woke up and went smashing out, like I said. Hey, so there's like a lot of story there that could happen. But what I bring to it is a structural feeling. I bring it to it like thematic things, like see how that's a different opportunity in comedy, and then Trey can really figure out what's funny there and do his own South Park thing. And I feel like that, like I've been consistent as a creative mind where I'm like, you understand how I bring to you guys something that Trey or Matt on their own can't easily just say. That'd be like patting themselves on the back. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," And so I'm this guy who is constructive because I'm saying, the people want to see a good story or a good thing happening there, and and Trey'd say, you're right, and that's important. But it might be like more difficult for Trey on his own to get to a place where he feels that type of glow, and so that's what I'm introducing, and I'm saying like on the relational patterns, I'm on the right side of it, right? So I'm relating properly to with Trey, um, as like a rule, as like a static constant. Okay, we're doing the right thing. So when we focus in on that about like, okay, he's talking about bringing stuff. What is he bringing? It's perfectly clean. It's perfectly good. I just want to make sure that we have that. It's not just like, oh, that's on record. It's personal, and I feel that that's what's different about me as as a communication artist, is that I'm working to involve like quantum mechanics, and then I learned about moral law within, and really what it is like I want to be someone who says like, you don't always have to just believe what you're hearing from other people. Like you'll hear some like guru or some spiritualist, and he'll just be like, "Oh, and this and this and this," and you're like floating you off to a cloud of improbable faith, and then it's not much contributed by the man himself, and it's not talking about that the people in the room are all receiving a mutual lift. And that's what I want to do as a storyteller, is like help people to build themselves up and be like, oh, I'm oh, okay, so I can like modify myself and kind of tune it up and get into a place where I'm responsible for myself. Okay, so I do that, but I also speak about those permissions where like, okay, we're all walking forward in the understanding that we're going to relate properly. Okay, and that's, for me, that's really awesome, because then you like, even in um storytelling art, we understand like, oh, we've suddenly gone through the doorway of that permission, and we're like, oh, phew, and then you're able to see much more, I think. So I do look at like modern storytelling, what's going on, how are these people making people feel, what is it that, and all that stuff. And I try to not just be mean at them or whatever, but actually be the cure that I want to see in the world. And that's important. And I want you also know, Trey Parker, that my family is number one for me. And I know that in your heart, your family is number one. And so that's why I want to give you my heartfelt apology for offending you. And to be honest with you, the things that I said, I just wanted to be your friend. I wanted to get closer to you. And I was willing to walk with you through a difficult time. But I was a little bastard. And I just want to apologize because I do want to continue being your friend. And I want this to work magically. I want to escape the whole, the downward slump of like, oh, and what turned out was that Pan was like some sort of troll and he was trolling South Park. I mean, that's so, I just can't go that direction. All right, but I also want you to know that I'm not going at you just looking for that free ticket or, oh, and you're just going to pay for everything, even though I do feel it's a worthwhile investment. I want you to understand that I really care about this relationship and I'm dedicated to what I'm doing. And I'm really excited about presenting my family unit to the world. And I do feel that inside of that is the cure and will it hit a certain like critical incline and then whoosh, it'll just take off to the point of, you know, being familiar and good to people. So, all right. So there's my genuine apology. And I just want to say that I am dedicated to this work and I am asking you to hire me for the next season of South Park. And my story about, you can see how there's options here and it does have a lot of goodness. Um, and so I'm just very grateful for your paying attention and understanding and listening and believing that, my generation, which is 10 years younger than yours. So to me, I guess you were more like the cool big brother going around farting on celebrities, eh? That was freaking awesome, man. You were such a cut apart from the rest of the people. And in Zen art, it really does come back to this a very close place. Like, what is different here? And so, like, you farting on celebrities, like, really set you apart from the rest of the world. So that was your genius when you were, a street fighter like me. Um, but I didn't want you to go off thinking that what I was doing was some sort of newfangled Mexican Joker. Like, oh, he's doing something. He's doing something. Yeah, well, I'm doing my best. Right? That's what I'm doing here. So that's reality. Anyway, we want to escape this feeling of that we've all seen it before. It's a predictable. It's just going to be the same stuff. We want to have hope for the future and understand what's going on here. It's like it's a potential and it could be magical. He wants to work with Trey Parker because the next week, being on South Park, if my character could make a a hello on the next episode of South Park, that would be the soonest that I could reach America. And that is my initiative, and you understand about that. But I am willing to go the full length, um, and I'm fighting for that. I'm fighting for the studio, the where map, the where buildings. All right, well, let's look at the map because I wanted to talk to you guys about the map. And, thank you for spending the time and all this, for paying attention. All right, so for me, um, like, I'm not sure how much that this means to you guys about the South Park in the roads. Like, I think, there's times when we feel like this is like one of the coolest things ever. It's like a magic coin and it has a story written right on it. It's amazing. What I want to say about this area is I see that it has the overflow for tier 3 of my plan. And like, yes, right now, like Pan literally just needs like a space and some better equipment and he could just go, right? So why all of this? Seems like excessive, but it's like if you have a vision for tier 3, a vision of like, what about, you know, a location where people can have hope. Even if they never make the trip, at least in their minds, they're like, there is a place where people are getting together and talking about these issues like a youthful community. Because all of the other candidates running for president right now are doing the same pattern where they go from soapbox to soapbox and they're playing by the electoral college's rules, and I'm talking about facilitating an intelligent meditation where people can work hard together and build solutions that can then be presented by the green wolf. And like when they have a leader like the green wolf, it's very powerful for them. And we have the sort of backstory of working with South Park um, as like a backdrop, but it's nuance. It's not it doesn't have to be a primary theme, but it does. I think it speaks about confirmation to the male and it helps the boys feel, that they're awesome. And I think, somewhere in here there's a confirmation for women also, but it's mostly like I think that even the moms of the world, they're like, please, cheer on my son totally. So I just see raw potential here. And it feels great. I think, I love the name Where, like the green wolf deep in Where, like werewolves. Like, oh, it's like I'm seeing like the shadows of a very hopeful future. And it makes me feel really excited and it makes me feel good. And it's like, like I'm witnessing like early integration of magic to where humanity is now and stepping them up from where they are now and going to the brightest possible place we can reach. That's the plan. So I just want to thank you again. I know it's hard to. Uh, I want to work appropriately with you, Trey and Matt. I really want to be the right sort of creative mind. Uh, I think that, like, in my opinion, I was saying, like, I think the biggest holdback is that we're saddle worn, it's raw, and it feels like a little bit embarrassing. Like, and my feeling is like, and I think Trey would say, no, 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 that's not it. I am a professional that can see beyond that. I know what you're talking about, but that's not it. So, well, that's awesome. That's good news because that's what I was worried about. Um, but I am committed to this, and I do feel the pressure, the constraints of time. And so, me working with Trey Parker on the next episode is like, it's hard to say, but all right, Trey, it's like I need you to be the creative spark on this, Trey. I'm thinking like Trey Parker is saying it and being like water wheel mill, and then this feeds perfectly into this story. But I would need the Green Wolf to character to also, tie into this story, and so he's gonna have to deal with some shenanigans over here. Would that be okay? Yes, yes, absolutely. And I'm really excited to hear your adaptation, Trey. You're like, okay, all right, I can see how this would work. Those are great characters. This would be great. I know you want to continue with those characters into your own studio. I think I can feel that out. All right. And that's really what I'm hoping for. Thank you guys so much. I do want to apologize for the past, but honestly, I wanted to become friends with Trey, and I was willing to walk with him through a difficult time. And so that's how I feel like I'm becoming friends with South Park Studios is through this. Talk about like Buzz Lightyear. Man, that year went by really fast when I was out here performing. I don't know. I was enjoying myself, and it was very high energy. It was good energy. And I think it's hopeful. I think Trey sees it. Yeah, you're that generation of late 30s, and I hear you there. You're trying to make a movement, and I think it's ready to light up. I think that those guys are ready to go, and this guy might be the one to lead them. So that's why. And so thank you so much, Trey Parker, and thank you, South Park Studios. You guys are awesome. I love you guys for the greatest possible lifetime. That is our antlers. That is our supreme reason. The chandelier and the lights above. Okay, we're in it to win it for ourselves first and foremost. That's natural, and that's what we encourage everyone to do. That's basic instinct. But beyond that, of course, there is a mutual bond that we all have the greatest possible future, and that's what we're agreeing upon. That's what's made here. Thank you guys. It's so good. All right. The perfect design is armored and prepared in every way. True love is the answer. It is good.